believe often for people who perpetrate rape, that help is best served behind prison bars. Why do I say often? There are individuals who have committed rape and get a slap on the wrist and are not behind bars. And many of us are not okay with that, but we have to understand that in certain circumstances, it may be as a result of intoxication. As difficult as this is to say, sometimes it is a circumstantial crime. I'm not justifying it, but just as we have individuals who may see a wallet and steal it, there are individuals who commit offenses not because they are mass murderers, mass rapists, mass pedophiles, but it is the opportunity that presents itself. That person certainly needs help, and if prison is not going to avail them, then we need to do something about that. We have to educate the people around us, educate the boys in your world, and educate the girls. At the end of the day, rape, abuse, and exploitation are equal opportunity employers. They affect people all around the world, regardless of their ethnicity, age, gender, skin color. It's a sad reality, but that unfortunately is the truth. And those who do not understand what it is like to be a victim, instead of judging them, let's educate them. Let's let them have the opportunity to truly hear victim's voice, to truly hear what a victim has to say. Because often they're looking at a story from the newspaper that has sensationalized it. Often the opinions they have are not their own. It's simply the way they've been brought up, the things they've heard friends and family say. If that victim was somebody close to home, I'm quite convinced they would not feel that same way or make such inappropriate comments. But again, instead of judging, we need to educate. Let's speak for the victims. Let's be an advocate on their behalf so that the dynamics of the way people think, speak, and behave towards one another will change so we can have a safer society and a safer world.
Well, thank you for that. Talking about the victims, we know that definitely rape being that more like a gruesome act, I would say it definitely has effect on the victims, those who survive it, and a lot of them to survive it. It has the psychological effect, which is more like the post-traumatic stress disorder, emotional responses, and it also we have the physical effect, another effect, which like the unwanted pregnancy, the diseases, and all. Would you? I want you to take us through from. Yeah, looking at from the very young child who was abused by the uncle, the dad, the brother, the neighbor, the in-law, to the adult who was also abused by the boss, the whoever. I want you to take us through the different effects, the aftermath of rape on the victim.
What we have to understand, when a child is abused at a very young age, they often develop ACEs, adverse childhood experience. Now, an ACE, for example, could be as the result of any form of abuse, and as a result of being subjected to this abuse, the child will develop spaces in the brain. Now, it does not mean to say that they have mental problems, far from it, but there's often something different about them. And unfortunately, if they do not get the therapy, counseling, prayer, or healing that will restore their brain, they may often, but not always, often grow up with many of these dysfunctions even into adulthood. Now, when a small child has been a victim of abuse or sexual assault or even rape, they may have regressive behavior or sucking the thumb or even wetting the bed. Some of these children who are abused at a young age don't even know it. In fact, I've met survivors of childhood abuse who did not know they were abused. One of them had flashbacks. The other young girl was in a children's home, and the court case document said she was sexually abused by her stepfather from 1 to 6 months old. The sad reality is when we think about such a young age and the fact she doesn't remember that, is that many of us may also have been a victim of some form of sexual abuse at a young age, and we simply wouldn't know it. I indeed was a victim of sexual abuse from the ages of 4 to 10 by my mother's first husband. Many of the signs and identifiers that can be found in children, I had them throughout my childhood and even some of them into adulthood. Now, with older children, they usually do not wet the bed, so the signs are indeed different. Maybe they have low self-esteem, insomnia. What about an eating disorder, obesity? Now, it's important to understand if a person is obese, that does not mean they were a victim of abuse, rape, or sexual assault. But sometimes, as a result of what they have gone through, they eat because that is how they get back the control. What about a person who self-harms or has suicidal ideations? An individual who excessively baths, doesn't bath at all, is uncomfortable around certain family members or around certain people. Because the sad reality is with sexual assault, rape, and abuse, it is often by somebody that we know, not a stranger. What about somebody with STDs who's promiscuous? A person who's pregnant. Now, when a young person is pregnant or a woman outside of marriage, instead of judging her, we should ask ourselves mentally, who is the father? Because when we judge, we have no idea that she was impregnated as a result of rape. Not every child who was born out of a consensual, loving, sexual relationship. There are many instances of children who walk around who are indeed the results of a parent being raped, of a parent being violated, and we need to understand that. At the end of the day, no matter what a person has been through, help is indeed available so they can have a healthy and whole life. What about a person with a lot of anger issues? Now, let's say that there's a man who has tremendous anger problems that he takes out on his wife by brutalizing and beating her. Often our response is he should divorce her. If you're Christian, you'll say, pray about it. I believe that both of those responses may not necessarily be the correct solution. Instead of advising for this couple to divorce, for the lady's safety, I believe that instead you should recommend that they separate. Prayer is important, but we also have to have action too. Prayer without works is dead. We need to have action. We seek God first, but we also have to use wisdom in the things that we do. Now, this man beats his wife. If he divorces her and remarries, he will most likely do the same thing again. Because what has happened is his behavior and conduct of immense anger was actually the result of being sexually abused as a child. Now, not every man who beats his wife, that is his story, but we have to understand that with every person's behavior or conduct, it comes from somewhere. There is the root cause. We have to identify that root cause. With a man who's beating his wife, identify the issue so that he can get the help. If he has been abused as a child, he suffered trauma. And as a result of the trauma, he has anger issues, and that anger is taken out upon his wife.
Yeah.
His wife is not to blame. She is never to blame. His actions are criminal. I completely concur. But as I said, when you can understand the problem, you can get him the help so he can have a healthy and whole marriage. Making him divorce her and then remarry him will not solve the issue. With all of us, we have certain dysfunctions in our lives. Some of them are kept behind closed doors, but with every dysfunction we have, it comes from somewhere. We need to uncover the root. When we can understand the foundation of why a person behaves the way they do, we can get them the help so that they can be healthy and whole. I am convinced that your past does not have to dictate your future. And as it says in the Bible, all things, not just some things, all things truly work together for good.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, and I'll give you an opportunity to talk about your book. We just want to know these disorders and all, just a brief one. What are some of the measures that can be taken to after this case of rape? What are some of the measures that we're talking about, therapy and all those measures? Can you just in brief highlight some of the measures that can be taken?
I feel the most important thing for a survivor of rape or sexual assault is for them to get therapy or counseling. Now, it really depends on that person as to what sort of support will best work for them. There are various different types of therapy, but I feel that having a safe space to be able to deal with the trauma of what that person has been through is really crucial. The important thing to note is that with therapy and counseling, often the results take time. And the sad reality is a lot of survivors who have been victims of sexual assault or abuse, they believe that there is a quick fix, and that is not the reality. The reality is when a person has been victimized, often to deal with that trauma, they've got to go back to the past, and it takes a very, very long time for them to be able to deal with that issue. I feel it's important for us to understand that, because if not, then we will have the mistaken and the wrong assumption that a few sessions, a few hours of therapy is all that it takes. And this is not the case.
Okay, thank you very much. So you wrote a book, CYAKACS. Can you keep it secret? Can you just give us a brief about its content and, yeah, a brief?
Certainly. This is my book, Can You Keep a Secret, which I launched a year ago in Ghana. My book shares my own personal story of surviving childhood sexual abuse. It also provides people with signs and identifiers to be able to determine if somebody in their world has indeed been a victim of childhood sexual abuse. I also provide individuals with tips on how best to respond to disclosures of abuse, and more importantly, how to respond correctly to the question, can you keep a secret? The sad reality is when a child or young person or even an adult asks the question, can you keep a secret? We often respond no, or it depends. I too received an it depends. And as a result of that, I kept my secret of being abused for many, many years. My book is titled, Can You Keep a Secret? Because I want to encourage people. For you to protect and safeguard the children in your world, you need to respond yes to the question, can you keep a secret? When a person asks you that question, it is a cry for help. They're trying to tell you something. You need to respond yes with your mouth, and it depends with your head. Once they've disclosed the secret, then you tell them something like this: I have to break your trust and call the police. I have to break your trust and call the authorities or the social worker. It's important you have that conversation. Do not call the accused. I heard you've been sexually abusing your stepdaughter or daughter. They will deny it and hide the evidence. Whenever somebody asks you that question, can you keep a secret? Respond yes with your mouth, hear the secret, then tell them, I have to break your trust and call the police, and then take those next steps to protect them. Overcomplicating the question will not safeguard that child. I meet children and adults from around the world, males and females, young and old, who disclose to me for the very first time their secret. Why? I'm convinced they have tried to tell family members, but they got an it depends. We need to have the right response to that question. Respond yes to the question, can you keep a secret?
Wow, thank you very much, Juanita, Headley, for squeezing time to be with us, for sticking with us in spite of the hitches. We really want to thank you, and we know that next time when we call on you, you would honor our invitation. And I know your advice on can you keep it secret, and this saying yes has been accepted and has been taken by our viewers. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And of course, if anyone would like to get a copy of my book, they can contact me via my website, changingcases.org. That's changing, CASES.org, or my Facebook, Changing Cases. Again, my website, changingcases.org, changing, CASES.org, or my Facebook, Changing Cases.
We'll put that on the screen so they can get the right spelling and the right letters. Thank you for sticking with us. This has been Ladies Digest, and we touched on a very, very important topic, sexual abuse, sexual violence. Till I come your way next time, I'm Joan Ekwia. Many thanks to my production team, my producer, and my cameraman. Many thanks to them. Still I come your way next time. Do stay tuned.
Institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
Hello Africa, this is Event Update on AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Event Updates brings you information about upcoming higher education events happening in Africa, and it is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. I am Isabella Tetahinapa.
Je suis Alexandra Mpaba Johnson.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
The Association of African Universities, AAU, and the African Academy of Sciences is calling for applications for the Research Excellence Consultant for the Science Granting Council Initiative, SGCI Phase 2. The SGCI2 Research Management Project aims to fortify the capability of science granting councils in explicit areas of research management, namely research excellence, research ethics, emerging scientific practices, good financial grant practice, GFGP, benchmarking exercise, and development of online grant management systems. Interested applicants must have at least 5 years relevant professional experience, including extensive knowledge of research excellence assessments, proven research excellence assessment skills, and theoretical and practical knowledge of the use of RQ Plus and other comparable tools, multidisciplinary skills and ability to communicate effectively, fluency in English and excellent drafting and communication skills, ability to communicate in French or Portuguese will be highly desirable, ability to work independently and as part of a team, among others. Qualified consultants should submit a detailed application outlining their qualifications and suitability for this task, including proposed solution, budget, and detailed work plan and timeline for this task via the link on your screen before 30th October 2020. For more information, kindly email rdixon@aau.org and a copy to tepani@aau.org, or email a.neba@aasciences.africa.
L'Association des universités africaines et l'Académie africaine des sciences lancent un appel à candidature pour le poste de consultant en excellence de la recherche pour la phase 2 de l'initiative des conseils subventionnaires des sciences SGCI. Le projet de gestion de la recherche SGCI 2 vise à renforcer la capacité des conseils subventionnaires scientifiques dans les domaines explicites de la gestion de la recherche, à savoir l'excellence de la recherche, l'éthique de recherche, les pratiques scientifiques émergentes, l'exercice d'analyse comparative des bonnes pratiques financières GFGP et le développement des sciences de gestion de subventions en ligne. Les candidats intéressés doivent avoir au moins 5 ans d'expérience professionnelle pertinente, y compris une connaissance approfondie des évaluations de l'excellence en recherche, des compétences avérées en matière d'évaluation de l'excellence en recherche et connaissances théorique et pratique de l'utilisation du RQ, et d'autres outils comparables. Les compétences multidisciplinaires et capacités de communiquer efficacement, la maîtrise de l'anglais avec d'excellentes compétences en rédaction et en communication, la capacité de communiquer en français ou en portugais serait un atout. Avoir la capacité à travailler de manière autonome et en équipe entre autres. Et des consultants qualifiés doivent soumettre une candidature détaillée décrivant leurs qualifications et aptitudes pour cette tâche, y compris la solution proposée, les budgets et le plan de travail détaillé et le calendrier pour l'achèvement de cette tâche en ligne via le lien qui s'affiche sur votre écran avant le 30 octobre 2020. Pour plus d'informations, veuillez envoyer un courriel à rdixen@aau.org et copier techmani@aau.org ou envoyer un courriel à a.neba@aascience.africa.
The Science Granting Council's initiative, SGCI Phase 2, is calling for proposals from consultants aimed at deepening knowledge and implementation of research ethics in the African context. Interested consultants should fulfill the following requirements: deep knowledge of the research ethics landscape on the African continent, broad understanding of the regulatory frameworks of science granting councils in sub-Saharan Africa, including existing standard and best practice guidelines for the conduct of science, technology and innovation, excellent project management skills in international work environments, excellent skills in conducting high-level stakeholder meetings, as well as demonstrated skills in conducting research ethics studies in sub-Saharan Africa. Qualified applicants should submit their proposal, including a cover letter introducing the submission, an overview of the consultant, including similar past experience, names, bios and detailed CVs of the consultants, overview of the consultant's proposed project plan, deliverables, timelines, milestones, and outcomes, among others, as PDF documents, strictly via email to rdixon@aau.org with RFP for consultancy services for deepening knowledge and implementation of research ethics in the African context as a subject before 15th October 2020. Kindly encrypt your proposal with a password and share the password upon submission of the proposal. Please call +254 208 060 674 or +233 264 183296 or email rdixon@aau.org or l.mutengu@aasciences.africa for more details.
La phase 2 de Science Granting Council Initiative, SGCI, lance un appel à proposition de consultants visant à approfondir leurs connaissances et à mettre en œuvre l'éthique de la recherche dans le contexte africain. Les consultants intéressés doivent avoir une connaissance approfondie du paysage de l'éthique de la recherche sur le continent africain, une compréhension générale des cadres réglementaires des conseils subventionnaires de la science en Afrique subsaharienne, y compris les normes existantes et les lignes directrices des meilleures pratiques pour la conduite de la science, de la technologie et de l'innovation. D'excellentes compétences en gestion de projets dans un environnement de travail international et dans la conduite des réunions de haut niveau avec des parties prenantes, ainsi qu'avoir des compétences avérées dans la conduite d'études d'éthique de la recherche en Afrique subsaharienne. Le candidat qualifié doit soumettre sa proposition, y compris une lettre de présentation de la soumission, un aperçu du consultant, y compris une expérience antérieure similaire, le nom, la bibliographie et un CV détaillé. Un aperçu de plan de projet proposé par le consultant, des livrables, des échéanciers, des jalons et des résultats, entre autres sous forme de documents PDF strictement par courriel à rdixon@aau.org avec la demande de proposition pour des services de conseil pour l'approfondissement des connaissances et la mise en œuvre de l'éthique de la recherche dans le contexte africain avant le 15 octobre 2020. Veuillez crypter votre proposition avec un mot de passe et partagez le mot de passe lors de la soumission de la proposition. veuillez appeler le plus 254 20 80 60 67 4 ou plus 233 264 18 32 96 ou envoyer un courriel à rdixen@aau.org ou l.mutango@aascience.africa pour plus de détails.
A call for expressions of interest is opened by the Association of African Universities to express interest in undertaking the assignment of supporting the development of research management frameworks, manuals and procedures for the SGCs. Consultants should have an understanding of current international and Pan-African challenges in research management and knowledge of the current research landscape in Africa. Have a broad understanding of national funding systems and understanding of research management as both a strategic and administrative function. Qualified persons should submit their interest by completing the online form via the link on your screen before 15th October 2020. And for more information, please email rdixon@aau.org with a copy to tepani@aau.org and a.mukwana@aasciences.africa.
L'Association des universités africaines lance un appel à manifestation d'intérêt pour exprimer l'intérêt à entreprendre la mission de soutien au développement des cadres de manuels et de procédures de gestion de la recherche pour les SGC. Le consultant doit avoir une compréhension des défis internationaux et panafricains actuels dans la gestion de la recherche et une connaissance du paysage actuel de la recherche en Afrique, avoir une large compréhension des systèmes de financement nationaux et une compréhension de la gestion de la recherche en tant que fonction à la fois stratégique et administrative. Les personnes qualifiées doivent soumettre leur intérêt en remplissant le formulaire en ligne via le lien qui s'affiche sur votre écran avant le 15 octobre 2020. Pour plus d'informations, veuillez envoyer un courriel à rdixen@aau.org avec une copie à tepani@aau.org et à a.mukwana@aascience.africa.
And that is all for today's update. Event Update is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. Please follow us on our social media platforms at Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube, AAU TV_African Universities on Twitter, and AAU TV Official on Instagram. You can also visit our dedicated website at tv.aau.org for more of events updates. I am Isabella Tatahinakwa.
Je m'appelle Alexandra Mpaba-Janson.
The Association of African Universities, AAU, is an international non-governmental organization set up by universities in Africa to promote cooperation among themselves and the international academic community.
Mon nom est professeur Étienne Ehouan-Eilé. Je suis le secrétaire général de l'Association des universités africaines qui est basée à Accra, au Ghana. Je vais vous parler de la création de l'Association des universités africaines. Il faut remonter dans les années 60 pour pouvoir comprendre le processus. Déjà en 1960, nos dirigeants estimaient que l'éducation est l'outil majeur pour pouvoir lutter contre la pauvreté et assurer le développement.
I am Notumo Dlamini, the Director of ICT Services and Knowledge Management at the Association of African Universities. The Association of African Universities is a network of 400 universities in Africa. The biggest value that the universities benefit from being members of the association is this big platform that allows them to collaborate, allows them to work together, allows them to teach together. Through this platform, a university in North Africa can work with a university in Southern Africa, and also those in East Africa can work with those in West Africa.
Founded November 1967 at a conference in Rabat, Morocco, by heads of African higher education institutions, The association is currently headquartered in Accra, Ghana.
My name is Maxwell Amo-Hoyt. I'm the Director of Finance of the Association of African Universities. The association sustains itself from contributions from member universities and also from other development partners. Some of our development partners include the World Bank, other governmental agencies like the Swedish International Development Agency, UK Department for International Development, and other partners. We also receive a lot of support from other governments, especially the government of Ghana. Other partners include the African Union, which is more or less the parent organization of the Association of African Universities. The Association of African Universities hosts the Secretariat for the African Union's Continental Education Strategy. And by so doing, we provide coordinating roles for the African Union in helping members achieve their targets.
Déjà en 1960, nos dirigeants estimaient que l'éducation est l'outil majeur pour pouvoir lutter contre la pauvreté et assurer le développement. Et rappelons-nous que les années 60, la décade 60, a été une décade où la plupart des pays africains ont obtenu leur indépendance ou ont, disons, pris les dispositions pour être indépendants. C'était donc aussi l'année de développement, dans la mesure où tous ces pays indépendants devaient se retrouver de temps en temps pour parler de comment mettre ensemble leurs problèmes et trouver une solution commune à leurs problèmes. Et dans ce contexte-là, l'éducation était une priorité pour eux, surtout l'éducation universitaire. Et sur ce plan-là, les universités aussi se sont organisées grâce à l'UNESCO qui a parrainé plusieurs réunions depuis Madagascar jusqu'au Maroc.
My name is Jonathan Umba. I'm the Director of Research and Academic Planning. The programs and projects that we run at AAU are consistent with our strategic plan, and they are implemented for our higher education stakeholders, namely the higher education institutions in Africa. These programs are implemented in such a way that our stakeholders will get the benefit of membership of our association. And our programs also are aligned with a number of global and international agendas on higher education, including the Continental Education Strategy for Africa and the Agenda 2063. So these programs are aligned with a number of international agendas with a view to promoting higher education in Africa.
The AAU is the apex organization and principal forum for consultation, exchange of information, and cooperation among universities in Africa.
I am Professor Nkusa Mahao, Vice Chancellor of the National University of Lesotho in the Kingdom of Lesotho in Southern Africa. There are roughly 77 universities that are affiliated with the AAU in the region. But as you might be aware, there are a lot more universities that are as yet to take the membership of the Association of African Universities. Well, universities that are not members of the AAU are missing quite a lot. First of all, let's appreciate this one point, that the AAU is a main driver from the angle of training and capacitating the human resources of the continent, the agenda of the African Union 2063. So if an institution is not on board, it is missing the opportunity to leverage on the opportunities that are provided by the association in the area of training, human resource capital, training their own staff and students, the opportunities that are provided by the universalization of quality management on higher education on the continent, and many other opportunities that are provided.
Et en 1963, il y a eu une réunion à Khartoum, au Soudan, où les chefs des institutions d'enseignement supérieur ont décidé de créer l'Association des universités africaines. Finalement, la création va se faire à une conférence qui s'est tenue à Rabat au Maroc, et la création de l'Association des universités africaines a eu lieu le 12 novembre 1967.
I'm Prof. Hassan Kafi, AAU Governing Board member, representing for East African region. Also, I am the president of Plasma University, Mogadishu, Somalia. We really like to give a call for universities in Africa, especially in East Africa, those which are not members still in the Association of African Universities. We are calling them because we feel the organization is ours. It represents the voice of higher education in Africa being seen all over the world.
But in this context, it's not strictly so. It could be something new, it could be an assessment method that is completely new. But then again, it could be something that is already in existence, which you are bringing into your classroom for the first time. Or something that is just... it could be something that you've seen elsewhere and you are bringing to your classroom to carry out. Many a times what people do, or what many of us do, is to just pick on one assessment method, and from one class to the other, from one course to the other, that is what you use. Meanwhile, we need to be innovative. Innovative in the sense that what works in class A may not necessarily work in class B. For those of us in psychology, we have what we call demand characteristics. And that informs that every environment has its own demand characteristics that will make that environment or that gathering or that group different from this one. So when you enter your class, what should come to your mind is, what are the characteristics, what are the features in this class? And of course, based on those characteristics and those features, what can I do to make my assessment innovative in this particular sense? So in innovation in one institution may be something really already established elsewhere. But to help you, okay, thank you. But if you see it as an innovation in their circumstances, so changes may be new to a person, may be new to a course, may be new to a department, institution, or higher education. I'll give you a personal experience. Some years back, I was to take a master's class, and the title was Seminar in something something. And of course, for those who've been taking that particular course before, they will go to class, they will have seminars and all of that. During the exam, they will still have written exam. So I approached my HOD and I told him that in this course I'm not going to write, I'm not going to set written exams, that what we'll do basically will be strictly seminar. So what I did was to allocate 3 topics to each of the students to prepare seminar papers. And of course you come to present the first one. Hello, sir. My tail has fallen off. Maybe you hang it somewhere on my bed. Okay. Yeah, that would be better, yeah. All right. So you come to class, you make presentation. Now your class, your colleagues will critique the paper, they'll make comment, make suggestions and all of that. I'll then come up to make my own comments and suggestions and all that. Now you'll be graded for that class presentation. Thereafter you are giving your paper back. So go and rework this, taking into consideration the comments in class, the suggestions, the criticism, and all of that. And then now submit a clean copy. So each student will have to do that thrice for the 3 topics. Now at the end of the day, we found out that one, the student did very well in that particular course. They not only have very good grades, they also learn better. And that's the whole essence of what we are talking about here. We are actually talking in terms of assessment for learning as against assessment of learning. When is assessment of learning? You've taught for 1 semester, at the end of the semester you set examination, and you are able to make a verdict of pass or fail. And that is the end. But in assessment for learning, your assessment is such that enhances the learning of the students. Now, in that illustration I just gave, or that personal experience I just gave, you will realize that once you have made your presentation and you are asked to go and rework your paper, now you are going to be forced to read more, to look at those criticisms and those suggestions. So by the time you are submitting that paper back, you are submitting an improved work, number 1, and in the process you have learnt more. So that now became what we are using in that particular class. So innovation is something you are bringing in innovative assessment that would help the student to learn better. Not necessarily something that will make you to just say you have passed, you have failed. You are raising your hand. Okay.
So I just want to ask a question.
All right.
Your example is excellent, but then I'm looking at it vis-a-vis the requirements of the institution. So
okay.
For example, how then do you assign grades? If the seminar grade is just one-time entry.
It's not one time.
So if it's...
I said each student had 3 topics.
So this is in a class, not a seminar class. This is not a seminar class. This is a class.
It's a class.
So at the end of the semester, you know you have a template to enter grade.
Yeah.
The continuous assessment,
yes.
which is 30%,
yes.
or 40%,
yes.
depending on your institution.
Yes.
And then the end of semester.
Yes.
So I'm asking this question because of some practical example we've had.
Yeah, let me just quickly respond to that.
So how do you get...
Yes, each student had 3 topics.
Yes.
So each student will need to make 3 presentations.
Right.
Presentation number 1, 10 marks. Presentation number 2, 10 marks. Presentation number 3, 10 marks. Now, your submission, the best submission now, the first one will be graded, second one graded, third one graded. Those who stand for the exam end of semester. While your presentation in class will stand for continuous assessment.
But for proper assessment of students,
okay,
we know very well as teachers, the way I will assess students when they are doing presentation may be different. A student may just come and talk very well in the seminar presentation, but in down that thing that is written, he doesn't know it.
But
that's one.
Okay.
That is one. 2, you have not assessed them equally.
How?
Because the questions you get them are not the same thing. And I know for those who study education, you must assess students equally based on the questions. So if you give me a topic that I find very comfortable, and I write it very well, and you give the other person another topic, and which is more difficult, you cannot really place the assessment. You know, there will be problem.
I don't know if...
Okay, Dr. Mills. Yeah. Okay.
I do a lot of group work, and like in my 400 class, we would with the class, we would talk about what are some of the key issues that affect children, right? So, maybe child labor, child trafficking, domestic, that we list kind of, and then we work out a way, we assign the topics to the groups. These are different topics, but I have kind of a rubric or a guide.
Yes, a rubric,
right?
yes.
So things like
yes.
evidence of research, creative recommendations. For every topic, I tell you, I want to understand the nature of the problem, what interventions are existing, what recommendations would you, so that is the lens with which I listen to every presentation. And then I grade presentations, the same topic, you would come and present as a group, and I have a presentation
guidelines form,
and I grade the written paper to differently. So you may present very well, even if
your
the
content
paper is not too good, or the paper may be very good.
Your presentation will not be too good. So it will compensate.
Those are some of the ways.
I think that your illustration is quite perfect. Let me just add this to it. Now, at the end of a program, students are expected to write project, thesis, dissertation. They don't write on the same thing, do they?
I know.
But then they are graded the same way. You understand? Because it is not about the title. It's about the process. It's about the methodology. And like she said, once the rubrics are there, what am I looking for? Your introduction, your literature review, your methodology, your recommendation, your discussion and submission and recommendations. So the things you are looking for are very clear. And of course, in a seminar class, it's not as if you are actually coming to class to teach something that is new. In a seminar class, you are not teaching new concepts. You are bringing old concepts, you are asking people to research into it and make their presentation. But the point we are trying to make is just that in our assessment, we must adopt something that would enhance learning in that particular subject area. That's why we said assessment for learning and not assessment of learning. Because, all right.
No, I was just trying to help.
Okay.
I experienced
all right.
what you've done to your students.
It's okay.
Okay, I had a German professor, we are taking a master's class that time. There was no exams, like you did to your master's students. So what happened, we had all topics. But the topics was like general, you have to engage with general, like a pool of topics.
Yeah.
You can choose among and do your presentation.
Yeah.
So these pools of topics we all choose and we had presentations. That was for the assessment, mass assessment or continuous assessment.
Yeah.
And later on, those presentations we are supposed to write a research paper, stamp papers that we are supposed to be, scientific in nature. So that one goes for the exams. So at the end of the day, our presentations were assessed as continuous assessment. Our stamp papers were assessed
as examination.
There are no exams.
So now let me just add to that also. I was on a fellowship in the University of South Africa, and that particular year the department had a meeting and said, okay, all our honor students, in South Africa you have 3 years for your BSc and 1 year for honors. So the honor students say, okay, this year I want everybody to work on bullying. It is just bullying. So every student that is writing research project that year must write on bullying. But then you begin to tease it out. What aspect of bullying am I looking at? What aspect am I looking at? And all of that. And they were all graded in the same manner. So it is not so much as to the topic, but the lay down processes of conducting a research, writing a research report, and all of that. Please go back to that to the other slide. Still want to make a couple of statements there. Now, so any approach or assessment that delivered in an innovative way to help the learning process. You see, one major problem with summative, when we become preoccupied with summative assessment, is that many times you graduate students who do not have adequate knowledge of what we have taught them because there are no feedbacks. For example, in a course, at the end of second semester, you want to make pronouncement to your students, oh, you've passed this course, you've not passed, and all of that. Now, for those that you have pronounced as haven't passed. Some of them just scored 40%, 41%, 43%. Those are marginal passes. But then you said you are passed. So that student cannot come back to register for that course. So the student will graduate with an inadequate knowledge in that particular course. Because when the student had moved from level 1 to level 2, he won't come back to ask you. But if you have been doing formative kind of assessment, that at every period you have been given an assignment and you give feedback and you discuss the assignment you have given or the test you have given, you discuss with them. You know, for some of us, some people will just give tests, then you return the test script to them, then thereafter nothing is said again. But if you are doing a formative kind of thing, there should be feedback. And the feedback should be 2 ways. Now, after the test, you go back to class, the very next class after the test. Now say, okay, last week I gave a test, 10 questions. Question number 1, this is what I was expecting. Question number 2, I was expecting this. Question number 3, I was expecting this. Now, when you've given such feedback, those who did very well, you have reinforced that, they know it. Now, those who got it wrong, we then know, okay, so this is what he was asking for. But you see, in semester, end of semester exam, end of semester exam, they don't get this kind of feedback. I'll give you one last experience I had. I think that this should be in 2003 or thereabout. A female student walked into my office, and she had tears coming out of her eyes. And of course, when you are a male lecturer and a female student comes into your office and she's crying, you are afraid. So I was afraid. So I said, what is the matter? I said, your course. I said, what about it? He said, I failed. In fact, the mark you gave me, I think I should do better. Now I became double afraid. And it was a large class. So I asked her, I said, look, do I know you personally? She said, no. Have you had any problem with me? She said, no. Now the script I write there in my office, but I was like, maybe I made a mistake. So I said, can you come tomorrow? I will check. So she left. As soon as she left, I locked my door, bolted it. I was sweating the AC. I brought the script. Of course, in my university, there are no honest mistakes. There are no honest mistakes. So once you have issues like that, you actually will be processed. So I brought a script, and I think she got like 34 something. You know, when the score is very low, they will say the lecturer gave me 34. But when they score 70 and above, they say I had. So, and I realized that even with the 34 that I gave her, I was over generous. In fact, the university should process me for over generosity. So I became happy. I was on firm ground. The following day when she came, I said, can you do me a favor? Go and bring your notes. So she went to bring the notes. So we sat down. I brought out the script. I brought out the question. I said, read question number 1. She read it out. I said, okay, that's fine. Open to your notes. Read the notes that was dictated in class. She read it. I said, okay, this is your script. Open to this question. Give me the answer you wrote in the exam. As she was reading, she said, okay, I see. I said, let's move to the next one. Now, by the time we went through that thing, she became apologetic. You understand? Now, she sat for that course again and passed very well. But you know, not all the students will have the benefit of that kind of feedback by the system that we run. So, and that's why we are emphasizing formative assessment. Give the assessment timely, let it be truly continuous, and let the feedback be effective. With that, when you give the assessment is for them to learn and not to make a statement of pass or fail. Now, a lecturer enters the class for the very first time and he tells them, you know, my course is very difficult. Go and ask your seniors. Go and ask your seniors. It's a very difficult. Everybody on this campus, they know me. Go and ask. Just ask. Ask seriously. You understand? And I keep telling people, I'm coming to you. No course is difficult. It depends on who is teaching it. Yes, let me take you there. I'll go to the next slide and I close.
With the example you gave, I'm a bit worried because you said you asked her to go and bring her book and read the notes you are dictating.
Yeah.
Was it that she didn't reproduce your notes?
No.
I'm asking my question.
No, that, okay.
It could have been that she didn't.
No.
She had copied your notes and read.
No, you see, now.
Okay.
No, you've asked your question. You've asked, finish your question.
It's okay.
No, just finish.
No, it's okay.
Anyway, well, let me just, you see, I'm not asking you to regurgitate what I gave you in class. But the fact of the matter is that once I give you something in class, is to direct your further reading. But the fact of the matter is that if you completely go off the mark, I mean, because there's no way you'll be answering my question that you use one or two words, keywords, because you cannot teach a particular concept, even you, without mentioning key issues. I mean, you say, what is psychology, for instance? I mean, whichever definition you want to give from whichever authority, some key words will definitely be there. You understand? So that's the point. I wasn't expecting it. Of course, I tell my student, I come to class to just give you bullet points. I expect you to go and read. And like Osaga told us in our very first class, said, what I'm teaching you is the outcome of over 20 textbooks you may never see, plus over 20 years of teaching experience. I sat up. You understand what I'm trying to say? So that is the point in which we are trying to say this. So we should be formative in our assessment. Let it be timely. Let it be continuous, and give adequate feedback. With that, you will realize that students will perform very well, and not only performing very well, they will also have adequate knowledge. I tell my students, coming to class is not just to teach for you to make a first class or a second class upper. I come to class to impart knowledge. And of course, once you have that mindset, you are motivated to make sure that the knowledge is acquired. Can we have a look at this cartoon? And we're going to discuss it at our tables, then we'll discuss generally. Before you go, you see, this is a classroom setting. You can see the teacher, you can see the pupils. And then suddenly the teacher says, looks like it will be another F in class participation, Rex. Rex is a yellow guy. And Rex had that statement and said, and thought within himself, this is so unfair. Now look at that cartoon in your group, then attend to these two questions. How is this cartoon a reflection of how class participation is commonly assessed? 2, what innovative ways can you use to assess class participation? Can we do that in 5 minutes? Let's discuss among ourselves. Oh, affirmative action.
Well, I think it's a true reflection of
one class, please.
Assess class participation. We have questions generally, not directed to anybody in particular, and we expect the students to raise their hands, whoever knows. And because Rex is not raising his hands,
excuse me, let her finish.
That's how he was.
Excuse me, allow her. Please, you have the floor.
You can see the hands of the other ones really raised up. Rex wasn't raising his hands. So it's to me.
This moves, the other ones move the.
Yes. The reason why, I mean, it's, the teacher felt, oh, it's not participating because it's not raising his hands.
Okay, so in your conclusion, Rex wasn't raising his hand, so the teacher concluded that it's going to fail again. Yes. All right. So, what?
The innovative way would have been to ask Rex directly.
Okay, a code call is all right. Okay, this table.
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Mills. Okay.
We see that Rex's hand is up, only that he has very short legs.
All right.
So we see the way we. I said, talked about this, is that in class, there are some very obvious, students who are very confident, they raise their hands. Others too, I mean, the hand is up here. He's a big guy, but we assume that from where the teacher is, the hand is not showing that I want to say something. And so that's one. And then the teacher overtly making a comment like that about Rex that looks like it's going to be another F in participation is pretty embarrassing because Rex knows he's doing his best to be seen, for the hand to be seen. So the innovative ways, yes, just as they said, you could call them out. You could go around the class. That way you would see that maybe someone is making some effort to say something or draw attention.
Thank you very much. Okay, the Red Cap Chief.
Yes. Sometimes when you look at students and conclude that they may never do well. But I look what's there when I was a private school. I remember that vividly. I was so tiny, some of us, and our teacher used to recognize people who raise up their hands and people who know what to answer. And there's one dance in our class, very tall, the tallest in the class. Since he never raised his hands up to answer any question, he recognized this. The teacher asked one question, he says, sir, let me answer, sir, let me answer. As well as sir, Sunday, answer it, he said, oh, I've forgotten. so that is what the teacher applied that. And we say, what innovative way
for the next table, pick somebody on a table.
Can you use that the class?
Okay.
We believe that you can. First of all, in order to assess all these people, ask them individually. Just like we have been doing all this while, group discussion, one will air his own view, the other one will air his own view, and so on and so forth. With that, the teacher will be able to assess these people very well and then impart knowledge more into them than conclusion.
Oh, okay. Oh, you want to add something? Go ahead. Yes, finish. Go ahead.
In addition to what he has said, we also disclosed that that in the class we have different types of learners. We have auditory, kinesthetic, and visual learners. So, as a teacher, you have to put into consideration all these learning styles. So, if, for example, you are asking them to write this time around, it's maybe tomorrow you may ask them to listen to. So, whosoever doesn't like writing,
like audio. Okay, thank you very much. So, well, hello, sir. Speak for your group.
We think that the approach was not completely clear because he was attempting to answer the question, but his hands were short. So we believe that the professor should have accommodated his own special needs. That's one thing. So the innovative way of assessing the class participation would have been to throw the question to the floor and allow people to answer the questions and pose questions to specific students.
Okay. Thank you very much. So on this table, okay, you speak for your table. One class, please.
We also thought that this form of... Please, I have the floor.
Ogwefi, she has the floor.
We say that it reflects the way sometimes as teachers we only pick those who put up their hand, and also we only call on people who we see who are visible, because if you look at the gentleman, like the other group said, his hand is up, but it's quite short, so he's not visible. And also it shows the way we project students' abilities, etc., because he's already saying it's going to be another F. So what ways can we use to, innovative ways to assess them? One of the things that we said is to have a list and call people at random and let them know that you're going to be calling them at random. Pick on people to answer questions without embarrassing them, because sometimes they feel embarrassed. And I like to walk up and down my class when I'm teaching. So sometimes I'll say, and usually those at the front who would put up their hand, so I'll go to the back and say, okay, I'm coming to the back, or this side, I haven't heard from you. So, but pick on people without letting them feel embarrassed. Also, the teacher should give positive feedback. If someone answers a question and the person is wrong, and then you just say, oh, this is a bad answer, then it will, people will not put up their hand again. Yeah, and then someone also suggested that you may pre-inform the class. If it's a small class, for example, you put them in groups and say, okay, this group, you are going to be the one you're going to focus on when it comes to the class participation, so that they prepare and then they are ready when you call on them.
Yeah, can we all put our hands together for ourselves? Well, I'm quite happy about the responses on this. You know, like someone said, Rex has credible disability. His limbs were short. Not his making. Of course, he's not trying to make it up that he's disabled. His disability is credible. You can see he has a problem. But then, the teacher, you know this is not something that is just happening. Because he said, it will be another F. Meaning he has been consistently giving Rex F. And Rex will begin to think within himself, this man is never calling me to answer questions. Yes, he gives me F in class participation. Now, so the issues here can actually be categorized into three. The teacher, Rex, and the classroom environments. Now, this environment is a traditional classroom setting with the teacher in front and the students sitting opposite him. You know, in elementary school, in fact, the teacher may never leave that desk from morning till 2 p.m. He's there as the sage on stage, ditching it out, and you are just absorbing it. So, whatever is happening behind, the teacher may not even know. In this instance, he could not move around. So, it was impossible for him to see Rex raising his hand. Of course, well, it is even possible that the teacher himself is short-sighted. That's one impossibility. But if the class had been arranged in such a way that the teacher could move around, probably you would have seen Rex attempting. Another thing the teacher failed to do is that, look, if you have a student who is not talking in class, at least one of those days, I'll come to you now, after class, you should have just called to say, Rex, I realize, look, you don't be talking in class. What is the problem? Rex will then say, sir, I always raise my hand, but you just refuse to call me. So I thought probably you don't like my face. And they have sorted it out at that level. Oh no, I didn't know you were raising your hand and all of that. So which means the teacher did not get to know his students. So as teachers, we should know our students, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, know their challenges, know their disabilities and even abilities. Yes, sir.
Yes, then also...
No, I think his hand was up first. Oh, you first?
Yeah, it was him first.
Okay, so let's have you.
So, sociologically speaking, what they call fulfilled prophecy. So you might convince Rex that he's stupid or he's not good.
You are perfectly correct, sir.
If he's smart, he's going to start thinking he's not smart.
Yeah.
And that was not...
In fact, I thought that was the last comment I was going to make. The self-fulfilling prophecy part of it. That as teachers, we have to be mindful of how we talk to our students. Just one statement can damage a student for life.
Yes.
So you should be mindful. You can't just say, look, it's going to be under F for you. You can just call Rex and say, Rex, you know you are not been doing well in class participation. What are the issues? Let the student now tell you what the issues are. Yes, sir.
You know, in situation, of course, this is a saying that some people don't really accept. Sometimes they say, God help those who help themselves. Look at where he is. And he knows where he is. The teacher could not see him. Why can't he come in front?
Well, two things. Okay.
Yeah. You see, he's not short. The teacher is also short. So the teacher may also not be able to see beyond the rest.
Now, if you cast your mind back to elementary school, well, I don't know whether your experience will be the same as our experience. That in elementary school, the teachers usually be the one to allocate seats. And what they try to do is to put the short ones in front and the tall ones, the big ones, behind. And of course, if you look at the size of Rex, you also realize that if Rex should relocate to this place, and this guy goes to the back, now this one will not be able to see the teacher or the board, because Rex will be blocking. So I think we can begin to go on and on and on and on. But the fact of the matter is just that as a teacher, you need to know your students, abilities, disabilities, strengths, weaknesses, and you need to engage them, even outside of the classroom. If you suspect that a particular student is not pulling his or her weight, then go to meet that student. What exactly is the problem? Allow the student to talk. Many of us will approach our class as Ayatollah. Once you are coming, the students are afraid. And they are so afraid that even after the class, you have personal issues they want to discuss with you, they cannot come to you. But if you let them realize that, look, I'm here because you are here. Well, I don't see a university without students. They are the reason we are there. So we should make them feel at home to approach us, to discuss with us and all of that. So in assessment, what is the best form of assessment? The best form of assessment is an assessment that will enhance learning and improve the students' ability in that particular course. Now we're going to do something else, and I'll call my colleague to come and take over from here. It's time for break. Oh, okay. So we'll go for tea break now.
Alright, so we are privileged to have one of our facilitators, and that is Professor Peter Olakpeba, and he's from the University of Ibadan. We were with him in Ibadan and he did fantastic, and he's here in Ghana as well. We want to find out what has been the take home for his participants so far. Prof, you are welcome to AAU Television.
Thank you very much.
Great. I'm so much happy to see you in Ghana. Hope you've gotten the Ghanaian food and everything.
Well, except that I've not been able to get dokuna.
Yes, we'll take you to Osu, where you'll get the best of kinky.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's find out from you. You were a facilitator in Ibadan. We were with you in Mombasa. You were in Nairobi, and you are here in Ghana. What has been the journey so far in terms of your facilitation?
Well, thank you so very much. Well, even before facilitation, I was actually with the team in Dar es Salaam in 2017 when we started putting this together. And of course, my experience has been something that is awesome. Awesome in the sense that when we gathered in Mombasa, I think that was September 2017, we were not too sure of where this was leading to. And of course, just before our very eyes, it began to crystallize. And of course, it just keeps expanding. So it's been very awesome. Each time we gather to facilitate or to teach people and all of that, I've seen tremendous impact we are making. And this impact can be seen even on the faces of the participants. Of course, they are taken by what we are talking about, and of course, as they are learning, we are also learning. Because from one training to the other, we keep changing our things and all of that. But the take-home is just that. This is something that has a capacity to transform pedagogy in higher education in Africa. The acceptability is awesome, and of course you can even see that policymakers are identifying with this, vice chancellors are coming around and all of that. And each of the vice chancellors are going back to their own universities, even to encourage their people to sign on to this. Now, when we had the Ibadan training, we were able to train, over 200. And of course, cumulatively now, our University of Ibadan lecturers are in part of this training, certified now, about 300. And to me, that is awesome. So what we are doing now is to cascade. Now, back in our university, cascade is down. Not only cascading, forming a community of practice. And of course, in the University of Ibadan, it is not that we have just one community of practice. Of course, we have one, which is an umbrella community of practice. But then, each faculty is starting its own community of practice. So now we are operating more ourselves. Okay. And of course, we then have programs that bring all of us together. So this training in pedal has been very awesome, very wonderful. It's an eye-opener, and it's actually pushing the frontier. We are breaking loose from the tradition, from what used to be, into new frontiers. And of course, this can only enhance what we do in terms of teaching, in terms of learning. Now it is good for the facilitators. It's also good for the students, because now the students come to class and realize that, look, the whole atmosphere has changed, that the mindset has even changed. Now it is no longer a mindset of pass or fail. It's now a mindset of imparting knowledge and assisting students to learn in a very innovative manner. Coming to the realization that, look, both the teachers, or let me say both the facilitators and learners, they are partners. We are partners in all of this. I have something I want to teach, you can learn from me. So when we go on a journey together, it's best for all of us. Because when you look at the knowledge market today, realize that the knowledge market is not restricted. When we're in school back in those days, the teacher comes to class to tell you what he has read and what he knows and all of that. And then, of course, you have to go back and give him what he has given you. But today, you stand in front of your class to teach. As you are teaching, your student can go online and Google the exact concept you are teaching them. And if you are getting it wrong, they know immediately. You understand? So when you go to class as Mr. Know-all, and at the end of the day you groove, they look at you that you don't have anything. But when you go to class, you tell them, in this journey we are going to learn together. I'm going to facilitate, I'm going to lead, but you're also going to give me input. So you don't begin to assume that students are coming to your class tabula rasa. You understand? No. They have something, they have particular knowledge. All you need to do is to help them transfer that knowledge in the appropriate manner. So, and Pedal is doing that to us. Pedal is doing that for us. Pedal is encouraging us to push ourselves beyond the limit that has been traditionally set for us. So I think we are doing very well, and it's actually the future of pedagogy in Africa.
Great. Absolutely, you've said it all. But then one key thing that is so much important to us, even as an association of African universities, is the issue of monitoring and evaluation, and making sure that whatever participants get from our trainings, they go back to their universities and you could see the sustainability. What and how will what will Pedal do differently to ensure that in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we still have Pedal going on and we still have our universities still subscribing to this new paradigm?
Yeah, I would take that at two levels. At the more global level and at the level of the investor, but in terms of sustainability. I think your association can do well in trying to synergize with vice chancellors on the face of Africa, on the continent of Africa, bring them together, tell them what the expectations are, and support them. Because one major challenge we have and that we are going to have to deepening Pedal in our university is actually infrastructure. Now, so many universities on the continent of Africa are actually facing the issue of infrastructure because governments of nations are actually not funding education the way they should fund it. So if you go back now and infrastructures are not there, that will be a major challenge. But AAU can actually step in to have something like a kind of synergy to say, look, can we set a template for African universities? Can we have a minimum standard that nations on the continent will sign on to, and they ensure that that is domesticated in their universities? That would be a very strong push in this direction. Well, on the in deepening Pedal in universities, of course, when we gather people like this, these are part of things we tell them that, look, you have become a convert. So go back to your university and spread the gospel of Pedal. Go back to your university, engage the administration, engage your colleagues, engage your senior colleagues, tell them there are new ways of doing things, can begin to look at it. Now, in the University of Ibadan, for instance, what we've simply done is to take Pedal and domesticate it in our Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence. Okay. You understand? And of course, we've said that one of the things we want to do is to mainstream Pedal into induction training for new lecturers. Okay. Yeah, new academics. So as soon as you are employed, before you go into the classroom to go and teach, you go to that center and have an induction course. It could be 6 weeks, it could be 8 weeks. Have that intensive induction on Pedal. So by the time you get to class, you know what you are doing. You are transformed already. So that is that on the one side. And of course, again, to give institutional support to our community of practice and communities of practice, at the global university level and at the faculties level. Now, to deepen that, such that those who have been through this training will now be used as facilitators to train those who couldn't join, young for resources and all of that. And without want to sustain it. And we're also thinking in terms of having a postgraduate diploma in pedagogy, in Pedal, and even a master's. And of course, in this wise, we are very lucky because when we had the Ibadan training, one of the people that came around was the Chief Executive of Teachers Regional Council in Nigeria. And all the thing he told us is that, look, he's quite impressed with what we're doing, and that his organization, which is the organization that satisfies teachers in Nigeria, his organization will certify whosoever had gone through this training. To me, that's a landmark. Meaning by the time you go through this training, you get a license from an agency of the federal government of Nigeria saying you are a professional teacher. That's a landmark. And of course, if we have such a thing, we won't go back to sleep. We'll continue to engage it, continue to deepen our pedal in University of Ibadan. And of course, our focus is beyond that. We want to be the hub, want to be able to spread from University of Ibadan to all universities in Nigeria. And that was why when we had the Ibadan cascade training, the vice chancellor insisted, and we agree with him, that we should invite other universities to be part of it. So we invited people from about 5 or 6 universities, University of Nigeria, Obafemi Awolowo University, University of Lagos, University of Jos, and all of that. So we were able to do that. And so pedal is not going to die in Ibadan. We'll continue to deepen it.
We are so much proud of your achievement as a university. And we'll still be following up to find out what differently you are doing at the University of Ibadan. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Great. So we just had a beautiful interaction with Professor Peter Oladepa. I hope I got the name right. And he has been telling us what his university is doing and what we must do globally to sustain pedal. Keep watching our interview sessions. My name is Chris Issa.
La première édition du Salon africain de l'enseignement supérieur a eu lieu le 7 mai 2018 dans l'enceinte de l'Institut international d'ingénierie de l'eau et de l'environnement 2IE à Ouagadougou, au Burkina Faso.
L'objectif de ce salon, c'est que l'université qui était dans sa tour d'ivoire vient maintenant en ville. Et c'est une occasion pour les centres d'excellence de montrer ce qu'ils savent faire, ce qu'ils ont acquis comme résultats et expertise.
Les centres d'excellence de 9 pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest étaient venus présenter leur formation, leurs programmes de recherche aux étudiants et aux professionnels présents pour l'occasion.
Cette journée-là est une innovation encouragée parce que ça donne l'opportunité non seulement de nous connaître aussi, parce que cette fois-ci c'est parler de ce que fait le centre d'excellence, pas forcément des résultats du centre d'excellence, et aussi ça permet aussi de faire venir nos étudiants. Nos étudiants sont nos meilleurs ambassadeurs.
Les étudiants ont pu recueillir les informations qui leur permettront de planifier la suite de leur cursus universitaire.
Je trouve que c'est une bonne initiative parce que souvent certains étudiants cherchent à changer d'horizon mais ils n'ont pas forcément l'occasion de connaître certaines universités. Bon, c'est bien pour les universités de se faire connaître mais aussi pour les étudiants de découvrir de nouvelles universités.
Les centres d'excellence africains sont au nombre de 22. Universités, écoles, instituts de recherche, ils ont en commun de vouloir faire reconnaître la qualité de l'enseignement supérieur africain et cela au-delà de ses frontières.
Être centre d'excellence, c'est des exigences. C'est être à des standards internationaux. Être centre d'excellence, c'est avoir des formations qui soient accréditées. Non seulement au niveau national, au niveau régional, mais surtout au niveau international.
Cette excellence permettra aux étudiants de trouver facilement un emploi qui contribuera au développement de l'Afrique.
After school, they should be able to gain employment. And how can they gain employment? If industry recognizes our programs and our products are very good, they are competent and they can deliver, getting a job will not be a problem.
Les centres d'excellence africains développent des thématiques liées aux besoins prioritaires de leur pays. Chacun enrichit ses aires de connaissances en produisant des ressources humaines compétentes et favorise la création de technologies répondant aux défis que l'Afrique doit relever.
We need to develop expertise, people who have the knowledge, the know-how, the technical know-how to be able to develop systems and manage them for society and for humanity.
C'est pas juste un label, mais c'est aussi en fait de la rigueur, c'est de l'excellence dans la formation, dans la recherche et dans le process même en fait pédagogique.
Depuis 2014, les établissements de l'enseignement supérieur qui sont devenus centres d'excellence ont pu faire reconnaître leur travail et leur engagement pour le développement.
In terms of what we do, we should stand out in terms of quality, and of course, in terms of staff, we need to also get the caliber of staff, competent staff to do teaching and research.
Le Salon de l'enseignement supérieur africain était une première pour l'ensemble des centres d'excellence africains. Il enrichit ce projet financé par la Banque mondiale et géré par l'Association des universités africaines.
Le projet, c'est un grand partenariat entre surtout les 9 gouvernements qui sont partis du projet. La Banque mondiale, et c'est géré au niveau de la région de l'Association des universités africaines qui gère, qui font tout le suivi et évaluation, tout le renforcement des capacités des universités.
2 fois par an, les centres d'excellence africains se réunissent pour des ateliers visant à pousser toujours plus loin la réflexion autour de ce projet.
The workshop has been put together by the Association of African Universities. They've been the ones who have been mentoring us and giving us tremendous support.
Le premier salon de l'enseignement supérieur africain offre de nouvelles et nombreuses perspectives. Il a renforcé la pertinence du réseau des centres d'excellence africains et de sa vision pour un enseignement supérieur gage de développement.
Et ça fait maintenant 4 ans qu'on a ce projet. On voit qu'il y a un grand dynamisme dans les universités. Et ça, c'est important pour nous de montrer que l'Afrique peut.
The World Bank project, the support that we're getting from AAU is showing us that it is possible for us across the Anglophone and Francophone Africa to collaborate and share things and build up on our strengths to improve development in the West African region.
Hello Africa, this is Event Update on AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Event Update brings you information about upcoming higher education events happening in Africa. And it is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. I am Isabella Tetahinapa.
Je suis Alexandra Mpaba Johnson.
Institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or Ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
The Association of African Universities, AAU, and the African Academy of Sciences is calling for applications for the Research Excellence Consultant for the Science Granting Council Initiative, SGCI Phase 2. The SGCI2 Research Management Project aims to fortify the capability of science granting councils in explicit areas of research management, namely research excellence, research ethics, emerging scientific practices, good financial grant practice, GFGP, benchmarking exercise and development of online grant management systems. Interested applicants must have at least 5 years relevant professional experience, including extensive knowledge of research excellence assessments, proven research excellence assessment skills, and theoretical and practical knowledge of the use of RQ Plus and other comparable tools, multidisciplinary skills and ability to communicate effectively, fluency in English and excellent drafting and communication skills, ability to communicate in French or Portuguese will be highly desirable, ability to work independently and as part of a team, among others. Qualified consultants should submit a detailed application outlining their qualifications and suitability for this task, including proposed solution, budget and detailed work plan and timeline for this task via the link on your screen before 30th October 2020. For more information, kindly email rdixon@aau.org and a copy to tapani@aau.org or email a.neba@aasciences.africa.
L'Association des universités africaines et l'Académie africaine des sciences lancent un appel à candidature pour le poste de consultant en excellence de la recherche pour la phase 2 de l'initiative des conseils subventionnaires des sciences SGCI. Le projet de gestion de la recherche SGCI 2 vise à renforcer la capacité des conseils subventionnaires scientifiques dans les domaines explicites de la gestion de la recherche, à savoir l'excellence de la recherche, l'éthique de recherche, les pratiques scientifiques émergentes, l'exercice d'analyse comparative des bonnes pratiques financières GFGP et le développement des sciences de gestion de subventions en ligne. Les candidats intéressés doivent avoir au moins 5 ans d'expérience professionnelle pertinente, y compris une connaissance approfondie des évaluations de l'excellence en recherche, des compétences avérées en matière d'évaluation de l'excellence en recherche et connaissances théoriques et pratiques de l'utilisation du RQ+, et d'autres outils comparables. Les compétences multidisciplinaires et capacités de communiquer efficacement, la maîtrise de l'anglais avec d'excellentes compétences en rédaction et en communication, la capacité de communiquer en français ou en portugais serait un atout. Avoir la capacité à travailler de manière autonome et en équipe entre autres. Et les consultants qualifiés doivent soumettre une candidature détaillée décrivant leurs qualifications et aptitudes pour cette tâche, y compris la solution proposée, les budgets et le plan de travail détaillé et le calendrier pour l'achèvement de cette tâche en ligne via le lien qui s'affiche sur votre écran avant le 30 octobre 2020. Pour plus d'informations, veuillez envoyer un courriel à rdixon@aau.org et copier techmani@aau.org ou envoyer un courriel à a.neba@aascience.africa.
The Science Granting Councils Initiative, SGCI Phase 2, is calling for proposal from consultants aimed at deepening knowledge and implementation of research ethics in the African context. Interested consultants should fulfill the following requirements: deep knowledge of the research ethics landscape on the African continent, broad understanding of the regulatory frameworks of science granting councils in sub-Saharan Africa, including existing standard and best practice guidelines for the conduct of science, technology and innovation, excellent project management skills in international work environments, excellent skills in conducting high-level stakeholder meetings, as well as demonstrated skills in conducting research ethics studies in sub-Saharan Africa. Qualified applicants should submit their proposal, including a cover letter introducing the submission, an overview of the consultant, including similar past experience, names, bios and detailed CVs of the consultants, overview of the consultant's proposed project plan, deliverables, timelines, milestones and outcomes, among others, as PDF documents, strictly via email to rdixon@aau.org with RFP for consultancy services for deepening knowledge and implementation of research ethics in the African context as a subject before 15th October 2020. Kindly encrypt your proposal with a password and share the password upon submission of the proposal. Please call +254 208 060 674 or +233 264 183296 or email rdixon@aau.org or l.mutengu@aasciences.africa for more details.
La phase 2 de Science Granting Council Initiative, SGCI, lance un appel à proposition de consultants visant à approfondir leurs connaissances et à mettre en œuvre l'éthique de la recherche dans le contexte africain. Les consultants intéressés doivent avoir une connaissance approfondie du paysage de l'éthique de la recherche sur le continent africain, une compréhension générale des cadres réglementaires des conseils subventionnaires de la science en Afrique subsaharienne, y compris les normes existantes et les lignes directrices des meilleures pratiques pour la conduite de la science, de la technologie et de l'innovation. D'excellentes compétences en gestion de projets dans un environnement de travail international et dans la conduite des réunions de haut niveau avec des parties prenantes, ainsi qu'avoir des compétences avérées dans la conduite d'études d'éthique de la recherche en Afrique subsaharienne. Le candidat qualifié doit soumettre sa proposition, y compris une lettre de présentation de la soumission, un aperçu du consultant, y compris une expérience antérieure similaire, le nom, la bibliographie et un CV détaillé. Un aperçu de plan de projet proposé par le consultant, des livrables, des échéanciers, des jalons et des résultats, entre autres sous forme de documents PDF strictement par courriel à rdixon@aau.org avec la demande de proposition pour des services de conseil pour l'approfondissement des connaissances et la mise en œuvre de l'éthique de la recherche dans le contexte africain avant le 15 octobre 2020. Veuillez crypter votre proposition avec un mot de passe et partagez le mot de passe lors de la soumission de la proposition. Veuillez appeler le plus 254 20 80 60 67 4 ou plus 233 264 18 32 96 ou envoyer un courriel à rdixon@aau.org ou l.mutangu@aascience.africa pour plus de détails.
A call for expressions of interest is opened by the Association of African Universities to express interest in undertaking the assignment of supporting the development of research management frameworks, manuals and procedures for the SGCs. Consultants should have an understanding of current international and Pan-African challenges in research management and knowledge of the current research landscape in Africa. Have a broad understanding of national funding systems and understanding of research management as both a strategic and administrative function. Qualified persons should submit their interest by completing the online form via the link on your screen before 15th October 2020. And for more information, please email rdixon@aau.org with a copy to tepani@aau.org and a.mukwana@aasciences.africa.
L'Association des universités africaines lance un appel à manifestation d'intérêt pour exprimer l'intérêt à entreprendre la mission de soutien au développement des cadres de manuels et de procédures de gestion de la recherche pour les SGC. Le consultant doit avoir une compréhension des défis internationaux et panafricains actuels dans la gestion de la recherche et une connaissance du paysage actuel de la recherche en Afrique, avoir une large compréhension des systèmes de financement nationaux et une compréhension de la gestion de la recherche en tant que fonction à la fois stratégique et administrative. Les personnes qualifiées doivent soumettre leur intérêt en remplissant le formulaire en ligne via le lien qui s'affiche sur votre écran avant le 15 octobre 2020. Pour plus d'informations, veuillez envoyer un courriel à rdixen@aau.org avec une copie à tekwani@aau.org et à a.mukwana@science.africa.
That is all for today's update. Events Update is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. Please follow us on our social media platforms at Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube, AAU_African Universities on Twitter, and AAU TV Official on Instagram. You can also visit our dedicated website at tv.aau.org for more of events updates. I am Isabella Tatahinakwa.
Je m'appelle Alexandra Ampaba-Janson.
So welcome back to the roundtable on the impact of the Corona crisis. This next hour is a bit more action-oriented. First, we'll hear from 3 students about their experiences, and then we'll launch into discussion. And I think we'll not take questions directly to the students, but make that part of the discussion. So please, if you have questions for them, take note of them somewhere so you don't forget, so we can have a useful and lively discussion. To introduce this section, I've asked my colleague. He's an extraordinary professor here at the Nordic Africa Institute. And when we had an advisory meeting about this roundtable, he insisted there has to be student perspectives, and I'll leave to him to explain why that is so important.
Thanks so much, Kaisa, and welcome everyone. It's a little bit absurd almost that the oldest participant, meaning me, I am as old as I look, opens now the round with the contributions by the 3 youngest participants in that chat. But I think age does not really matter when it comes to tackling social challenges and problems. While I think I'm a dinosaur, I hope that my mindset is a current one. And while I cannot preempt what the 3 students have to say, and I'm very keen to listen, because especially my age group should learn not to talk as much as we do, but to listen more, and then think twice before we talk, I would like to share a few concerns which basically contribute in a nutshell to the debate. And they engage on 2 levels with knowledge production and knowledge transmission. And I think the one is class and the other one is the meaning of knowledge. Now, what do I mean? And I have just 3.5 minutes left. With class, I mean there are social inequalities in existence. And we don't have to go back to Pierre Bourdieu, who stressed that as an important contribution in the 60s on the nature or the double nature of education. Class matters. now in our current societies, institutionalized access to higher education and the transmission of knowledge can used as an instrument to reduce class. But if we now are forced by circumstances to relocate education into the home, then it's not part of a solution, but exacerbates.
Voice of higher education, revitalizing higher education in Africa. Human resources are greatest assets, transforming Africa's situation. We espouse these virtues and mass scholarship. We research and strive.
Dr. Makuku, it's 12 o'clock, so if you can start.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special edition of the Association of African Universities Quality Assurance online workshops. I think I just want to introduce myself briefly. Many people have been dealing with me since the 30th of June 2020 to date. My name is Dr. Violet Makuku of the Association of African Universities. I'm a quality assurance specialist, project manager for the harmonization of higher education, quality assurance and accreditation initiative project. It's normally shortened AQUA project, and also the workshops coordinator at the association. Today we have this topic, but although it's something that we should be excited about, that we have moved it forward, it's quite sad to note that we had to bring it forward because of the numerous recurring unfortunate incidences around the world and in our African continent that is affecting a lot of people, including our higher and tertiary education community. Please, I just want also to introduce my colleague whom I'm going to work with today on this webinar. Is by the name Mr. Abednego Kolite. Is a Ghanaian, is our AAU senior IT officer and data project officer. For those who have been attending workshops to do with libraries, repositories, and so on, I think you have met him personally. Brother Abed, welcome. I just want to say more about him. I call him Brother Abed, and everybody else at AAU, you call them brother. So he has been working in promoting open access institutional repositories that help African higher education institutions to properly manage their scholarly output. He is currently in charge of the database of African theses and dissertations, including research. He has over a decade of experience in helping universities to set full-text open access institutional repositories, digitize their academic records and research findings, automate their library management operations, among other ICT-related tasks. He is also an advocate of open access and has been promoting and supporting the Open Access Initiative. In this area, he has been supporting institutions to set up online journal platforms to support institutional publishing. And you know, it's one of the things for those who have been moving with me. This is right at my heart, and I'm passionate about it, that we have our own journals and we set them to standard just like what other countries are doing. He has over 30 years experience in working with the higher and tertiary education community. So I think regarding the topic that we have today, you would all agree that I really needed to have him on board. So ladies and gentlemen, my presentation will be around more than 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes or so. And then because it is, I will give the background and the quality assurance next talking about, and he will come in with the what is available at the association in terms of interventions. Allow me to share my slides. Right, those are my contact details, and we can have them. The next thing is our outline. Irene, I hope you have inactivated the other things which normally trouble us. Right, so we'll have the background and introductions, and then implications for quality assurance, and then available Association of African Universities interventions. And so allow me to move on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, may I start by just introducing a third event that occurred in Uganda in Makerere University. And with me here is the VC of Makerere University, Prof. Barnabas Nawangwe. And as the association, we have also sent out our message to just sympathize with one of the oldest institutions in Africa on the occasion that befell them. On the 20th of September, Makerere University, which is has got the 1941 79-year-old admin building, was just set ablaze, and it's quite sad that a fire started there, and maybe now investigations are going on, but it's not known really how the fire started. But for us as the African higher education, our focus is just on the third event in terms of quality assurance. What can we do? I don't think it's the first institution in higher and tertiary education that has been affected by such a disaster. But now, as the Association of African Universities, we always take the opportunities to check what is trending in our terrain, what are the contemporary issues in our terrain, because as we serve the African higher education community and we are the apex body of the higher education community, we should always be alert to check on what is affecting this community and be able to do anything as intervention and also our contribution to such unfortunate events. So here now it's maybe after the fire, how it looks like in Makerere University. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, allow me also to broaden my background to say that currently in Sudan, the riverbanks of the Nile River broke, and it has flooded the parts of Sudan which are closer to the Nile River, and maybe some other areas which are not so much close. This is a recent 2020 event. We come on to Kenya again. You can see also they've been heavily affected by floods this year, and this is also Cameroon. And ladies and gentlemen, when I talk of these events, the events were unforeseen. And the key thing which we are now zeroed down on is that when we have such events, you know, as we have seen from the pictures I'm showing you, water is getting into households, and water is affecting everything in the houses to the extent that some of the houses were actually damaged. And we know what we have in our houses. We have our qualifications, our certificates, and our important documents are in there. The same applies to what happened in Makerere, and we know that if we talk of an admin building, it houses a lot of very, very important documents, pieces of equipment on the fire outbreak at that building. We were told that a police patrol team at Makerere University noticed the smoke coming out of the roof of the building, and the officer in charge, upon being alerted, also confirmed through CCTV control room. All this is important to what is coming in terms of we should do and how we should do it in our institutions in order to safeguard and minimize the effect and impact of these disasters. So there we were told of the CCTV. He immediately alerted the control room to request the fire brigade to rush to the scene I want to underscore the word immediately. And then the fire brigade arrived at the scene initially with 2 fire engines, which did not have the capacity to jet water to the roof of the building. So there we are with managing the disaster. After about 30 minutes, more fire engines with better capacity arrived, but by this time the fire spread through a bigger part of the roof. The fire engines experienced a challenge with lack of a fire hydrant within and in the vicinity of the university, and had to fetch water from hydrant the fire brigade headquarters. And I think as I'm speaking, you can check and see the strengths and the gaps, and maybe you are also reflecting to check on what is available in your institution and where you have strengths and where you need to strengthen the systems in the institution. Unfortunately, fire again broke out in the council room at 8 p.m., but the fire brigade this time arrived within 50 minutes and put out the fire within 1 hour. The fire brigade has been on standby on site, fighting small fires throughout the night. The building had been fitted with fire extinguishers for firefighting, but these became unusable since the fire started from the roof. Being an old building, it had not been fitted with fire alarms and water sprinklers. You can reflect practically all the documents in the Directorates of Finance, Human Resources, including the Central Registry and the Directorate of Internal Audit, were destroyed. Fortunately, all hard copies of the financial documents for the previous financial years had been moved to the archives, which was not affected by the fire. Similarly, all old files in the Central Registry had been moved to the archives. Information of the staff in service has been digitalized, _digitalized, and is safely kept on servers, _servers, which are not in the main building, not in the main building. Within the move to the integrated finance management system, all financial transactions of the university are automatically backed up electronically at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. In addition, with the recent financial decentralization at the university, a considerable percentage of the financial documents are kept in the colleges and administrative units. All revenue collection, including students' fees, rent, and other payments, are received directly by an URA, which then transfers the money to the consolidated fund. All payments are similarly made IFMS, which means the Financial Management System. All students-related data, including academic records, are stored digitally on the Academic Information Management System, which is also backed up at the Ministry of Science and Technology. Hardcopy student information is kept in the Senate building. Ladies and gentlemen, so for me, I just thought this was an important case study because we are in a higher and tertiary institutions. Our fellow institution has been affected, and with this case study, it brings home the reality that we can also be affected, and maybe others have earlier on been affected before the AAU was doing such exercises. But this time around, here we are, and the interventions come earlier than now, because as institutions, we are being alerted to act and act quickly regarding issues of security, issues of disaster and risk management. I read from one Professor Jimbo of the Zimbabwe Council of Higher Education, CEO, when he was sending a message to Makerere. He said, the lesson for us is to digitize our records. Very, very important. The Vice Chancellor for Makerere himself said this incident has reminded us about two important issues: the need to ensure our installations and the need to install fire hydrants on campus. For several years, he went on, management has budgeted for overhaul of the underground water reticulation system, including installation of fire hydrants, but no money has been approved in the budget for this purpose. So it means more effort should be done. Now management will continue to engage with government on this issue. And I just think because the government has seen the disaster and the devastating effect, I don't think the VC will now invest a lot of effort in having the government resolving their issue. So it's very, very important to note. And so allow me to move on to implications for quality assurance. But ladies and gentlemen, from the case study which I've picked, I think there are many issues, and these many issues will come to affect in terms of our records. And when I was just doing my presentation, you noted that issues of records is at the center of everything. I didn't hear of people who might have been affected or injured in the building, and I continue to pray that there were no people who were really affected by this fire outbreak. And so we are being alerted to do of things, and especially from the quality assurance dimension, I have this a constant monitoring and evaluation, and I will show you later on one of the key diagrams which I normally use. Policies which are related to such, and when we talk of constant monitoring and evaluation, it's very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. We should not say we did it yesterday or we are going to do it tomorrow. It's just something which is continuous and ongoing. And when I look at some institutions, they have academic planning and quality assurance. So when they start by saying academic planning and quality assurance, they mean to say academic planning is more important or it's bigger than quality assurance, and yet it's not true. Quality assurance is a thing, and when you label it in such a manner, it means that it can take you to look at quality assurance in a limited manner to only the academic, but also we have the academic support. The academic support has got our important support departments also. We have the maintenance, we have the estate and management, we have the transport, we have the security services, we have a lot, and we have our library services, we have our clinic and academic support, all the whole lot, examinations, registry, recruitment and enrollment of students, records. This is the time for us, ladies and gentlemen, to realize that our assurance should extend to get to all these departments and make sure we pay equal attention to them. Because with such an incident, we are reminded that our quality assurance should be encompassing. Everybody else should know the quality assurance principles, what it entails, and what is quality in higher and tertiary education. And also the major and very key component of quality assurance, which is building the quality culture in our institutions to make sure that we switch off the lights, we switch off the gadgets in our faculties and different offices, and we make sure that we take care of everything else that can help us to mitigate disasters when they come. And in terms of policies, ladies and gentlemen, you know, policies are legal documents. We are being reminded also to have policies along the lines of disaster management, of risk management, of quality assurance. And these should not just be policies which are gathering dust. They should be shared with the university community. They should also be read and understood. What? Because they carry with them the guidelines, the standards, and all the other issues which are associated with policies. And along the policies, we should have suitable processes and procedures. I think when I started narrating the Makerere report from the Vice Chancellor, you noted that when the fire was noticed, there were some steps which were taken. But as much as possible, we need to make sure that the steps involved in these processes and procedures are not too bureaucratic and are not too lengthy to such an extent that they can actually compromise the mitigatory measures and the preventive measures. So in case this happens, what could have been the other shortest ways that as much as you are following is stipulated in the policy regulations and so on, you are also escalating and alerting people for quick action, because in terms of fires, in terms of every disaster, it is the action that is taken and the level of promptness. When we are looking at the quality assurance dimension, that should also be taken. We look at appropriate tools and instruments. We include that the firefighting equipment, because the fire started from the roof, could not now be used. What does it tell us? Where should we have all the appropriate tools and instruments? Should they be necessarily be at one place? No, we should know what else we can do to make sure everything else is in place. Rapid response teams, even when we had COVID-19 outbreak, you realized that those institutions which had the rapid response teams in place, which also had risk and disaster management teams or units and departments and officers, the way they reacted to make sure they come back and start the teaching and learning process through online and other means, they acted faster. At the end of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they were back on track with a few students and staff being affected. So, ladies and gentlemen, do we even have the risk and disaster management teams, officers and units? Do we have a policy for that? What do we have in place in terms of these three? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to reflect and make sure in terms of our quality assurance, we have these in place. It safeguard our libraries. As you know also, libraries are key and core components of teaching and learning in the universities. And we have been talking about the teaching and learning centers and all the equipment and everything else that is surrounding the documents, examinations. All these are important. And you know the examination records are very, very key, because even if graduates are affected outside our institutions and they are affected by floods or any other disasters, or they are displaced by wars and other ethnic and civil wars, they can still refer back to the institution for those records. So if we see the magnitude of how important it is for institutions to keep those records, to documents, then we should think twice if we were not yet addressing this issue and digitizing most of our things which are related to the examinations, related to the library, and also related to all the other financial and other records in our departments, faculties, and institutions at large. And the other is that with this institution, they had already decided on decentralizing. Yes, decentralizing does not make the institutional leadership and management weak. Actually, it empowers them, because now look at this incident and what it has done. It shows that the leadership had a vision and a focus to realize that they put their eggs in one basket, just in case this basket drops or falls. And we should pluck a leaf from Makerere University. I will move on a bit quicker. We also need capacity building of staff, and we do our staff development and infrastructural development. I think the Vice Chancellor lamented that because this was ending, it also needed maybe to be refurbished in order to make sure that it could now have some smoke detectors which could then trigger alarm. Because maybe if they had this infrastructure and pieces of equipment, the alarms could have gone out earlier than somebody observing the smoke from outside. For infrastructure, we also realized another disadvantage, that their fire hydrants were not working, and the fire brigade vehicles had to go back to their station to refill. So, ladies and gentlemen, capacity building is very, very key in terms of staff development. Even the security staff and any other staff who are linked to this and the other operations in the institution. This again is making us underscore the issue and the fact that quality assurance is for everybody in the institutions. It's for everybody in the community of higher and tertiary education. And then I just want to quickly move on to the next. My slide is frozen, but it will not stop me. So what it also means to us is that in terms of this, my colleague will come in to talk now about staff development and infrastructural development with regards to today's focus in terms of quality assurance. Let's not forget that our focus today is on records keeping, it's also on libraries, and it's also on examinations. And for examinations, it's particularly because a lot of important documents and information is generated from our examinations. And this is very, very important for us to look at it. And then I just wanted to show you this before my colleague comes in. So in whatever we are doing in the institution, regarding the three aspects that I've pointed out, and regarding the overarching aspect of security within the institution, because all this, the reason why we are addressing the issues of our records, the issues of examinations, and the issues of our library, it's because of the overarching disastrous and environment we may find ourselves in. So we need to plan. I think I've already talked about it, that do we have a policy? Do we have the processes and procedures, the tools already in place, and the risk and disaster officers, units, or departments, depending on the size of our institution? But when we have all these things in place, we do. But our doing is the implementation of what is in all that makes up our risk and disaster management. And we should now check always whether it's on a daily basis, what has been put in place, whether on a weekly or a monthly basis, what has been put in place in order to enhance the checking. Is it that, or in 3 months, in 2 months, our people maintenance are moving around, checking the fire extinguishers? You know, having the fire extinguishers in our buildings is one thing, but also checking whether they are still working is another thing. We are in 2020, and when I do institutional evaluations, I've often seen some fire extinguishers of the year 2000. They expired long back. Of the year 2010, it means they expired long back. And if there was to be a fire outbreak, it therefore means that people will now rush to go and check on the fire extinguishers, only to find that they have expired and they can't be used. And they can't be used for, they are no longer fit for purpose. And that's problematic. Do we have sand buckets? Sand buckets, they should be everywhere. But maybe in some institutions, we do not have. Where do our doors open? Do they open, when we open them, they are coming inside or they are going outside? All those are security issues which we should take note of. In terms of our labs, our library, do we have anything in place to say of a fire outbreak, in case of an earthquake, in case of this disaster, a building just falling? What do we have in place? And ladies and gentlemen, this tells us that our works and estate departments are very, very important in our universities and other institutions, because in case of a building collapsing, in case of a fire, we realized we need these people. Our security, if they are constantly moving around our campuses, not only to check for thieves, but to check for burst pipes, to check for fire outbreaks before they escalate, you will realize how much we also need to allocate a budget for them, how much we also need to listen to them. We need vehicles to go up and down. Remember what they said also, which I didn't put there. They had to remove some of the documents to the archives. Some of the documents had already been moved. If you do not have anything to promptly move these things out of this affected area, it means you are going to lose even more and more of your documents. In wrapping up, I just want to say action is very important, and this cycle can be done daily, can be done weekly, can be done monthly, can be done constantly. And when we have that, we build the quality culture. When we build the quality culture, everybody in our institution is taking cognizance of what is important and what is done. Quality starts with you quality is in our hands, but above everything, teamwork is very, very important. But in my last words this time around, I just want to say, where there is quality, there is efficiency. Where there is efficiency, there is cost cutting. If all the key stakeholders have taken to what Makerere University had said, maybe the damage could not have been much, or we could not even have had the fire breaking out. But we want to also make sure, as fellow institutions, we are checking on this case study and learning our own lessons, and then we move on, because it is from the higher education that all the issues that are to do with the 17 SDGs, that are to do with all the socio-economic as well as political challenges which we face every day in our lives, can be resolved. So the other issue then is that if it has to do with the SDGs, if it has to do with the socio-economic as well as political challenges, we reflect as institutions to say, do we need to add something in our course content? Do we need to come up with new degree programs that can make sure that when we churn out these graduates, maybe through the institutional-wide courses that can be offered on risk and disaster management, we may end up having nations that are aware of some of these things which are normally taken for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the broader picture. When you are saying we don't have students or we have dwindling students, are you not supposed to think along some of these lines? Because these are wake-up calls to continue alerting us, to continue telling us as a higher education of our relevance and importance in making sure that our higher and tertiary institutions are relevant and are also responding to the day-to-day aspects of the socio-economic challenges, and also helping in our own way to resolve the SDGs. Having said that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to call upon my colleague, Sir Abednego Qualite, to come on board and now take a deeper dimension of why today we are saying quality assurance in records, examinations, and everything else, because it's very important. We will see the nexus. Welcome, Brother Abed.
Once again, I welcome everybody to the presentation. Dr. Malko has given us some background information. So I would want to restrict my presentation more to the records management and the need for introducing quality assurance in the way our higher education institutions manage their resources, their records, and their research findings. Let's begin by looking at the core functions of our universities. Basically, their objectives are to teach, to help students to do research and to learn, have the learning environment, an environment that is conducive for learning. What are some of the things that come out of all that? We have students' records, like she mentioned, technical reports, research reports, books, book chapters, monographs, You have inventions that are tangible, those that you can hold. You have videos, you have pictures, you have HR documents, you have memorandum of understandings, and a whole lot of documents that are generated from all the things that the university does. We want to look at how quality assurance can be used in all the management of these documents that we are generating from within the institutions. But before we go in, I want us to take a look at something. Students' results versus students' research. Which one is more relevant to the university? Which one makes impact? Let's think back briefly and see which of them we attach more importance to in making sure there's some quality assurance process or procedure involved in capturing. Is it the students' results or the students' research work? It is very obvious that students' results are where we try to infuse a lot of quality assurance mechanisms to ensure that students don't cheat in their exams and that all the things they do are relevant and they get the marks that they deserve. What about the research that they come out with? How or what quality measures do we put in place to ensure that they are of a certain caliber? I ask this question because several times we have done training workshops, we have helped institutions to set up repositories. Now the point at where they are supposed to now display research findings from the students, and I'm talking about the postgraduate level, not even the first degree level. Then suddenly the institution says that, no, we have to take time, set up a committee to do a search and find the most high-grade research findings and put them on the repository, because the repository would be shown to the entire world. So then I ask myself, so all the research findings or theses or dissertations that have been generated over the years, what are they telling the world by that instance or by their stance that they have to now set up a committee to review the theses and dissertations and put the most appropriate ones? So what about the others that are not appropriate? Have the students been given certificates and have they graduated? Based on what criteria did they give the certificates to the students? If it is not high grade, were there any steps to infuse some quality assurance mechanism in making sure that the students' research work was of equivalent status as the students' results or the process of getting the students their certification? Okay, so what we need to do is that the quality assurance processes or procedures between the two must be equal, at least. If not, the students' research work having more quality assurance processes infused than that of the students' results generation. There are issues to deal with relevance and impact. Financial documents, they are relevant to the run of the university. The students' records, receipts and all that, they are relevant to the operations of the university. But do they make an impact? Is that what the university will be graded on based on the number of students they graduated? How would the outside world rate the university? Is it based on the number of financial documents they're able to produce? Or is it going to be based on the research findings, the technical reports, the monographs that are coming out from the institution? Which of these two would make an impact for the institution? So if it's the academic impact we are looking for, how much are we prepared to sacrifice to ensure that our research findings, our technical reports, and our monographs are of high quality? These are things we want to be thinking about as we go through with our presentation. Quality assurance must be in the processes, they must be in the procedures, they must be in the way we create our records. Quality assurance must be there in the way we capture information, the way we process information, our processing methods, the way our documents are stored. If they are stored, fine. Are they retrievable as well? If you go into a room full of documents, how are we able to trace where a particular document is stored? How are we preserving them? These are areas we want to introduce quality assurance processes into, so that we make sure things are done right and are preserved for future generations. So let's take a a generalized view of what quality assurance in our academic records management would mean. It will mean, for instance, that the records are created right. And when I say created right, the right procedures are involved in making sure the research, for instance, that is being done is done right with no 2x4. When I say 2x4, I mean no proper things are done, proper data captured, proper analysis are done, and all those things that are done right, with supervision going through to make sure that data provided for whatever results are gotten at the end of the research is proper data. Are they captured correctly? Are they preserved on best medium? And this I will talk a bit about. Most of our institutions seem to have our records all on the medium of paper. They are paper-based records that we keep a lot. We would see why it is not the best approach now. From old, we know that it used to be stone tablets. At a point, it became obvious that stone tablets were not the medium to go. Then we had the scrolls that came in and all that. We had books. But we have moved beyond books now. We are now in the electronic age. So why are we still so tuned? Why are we so stuck to the paper-based documentation processes and records management? Quality assurance will mean that our documents are retrievable with ease. Quality assurance would also mean that these documents and records are accessible freely where possible. There are some that might have to be under lock and key, people have to pay for before they get access to. But as much as possible, are they accessible freely, and are they available? Are they available at all times so that wherever it is stored, I can walk in at any time and access those records? This is where also paper-based documentation becomes a challenge. If it's kept in an office, a library, or an archive, at the end of the working day, how am I able to get access to those ones? Compare it to a situation where it is online, where I don't need to go to an office. I can wake up at 2 a.m. I want to search a record. It should be easy for me to access that record at 2 a.m. because it is available, it's online, and it is free for me to use. That would have meant that there has been some quality assurance in making sure that record has been managed well. The paper-based documentation that we have, what are the threats to them? Let's take a look at, for instance, the medium. And in this case, we are talking about paper. So let's take a look at paper, what paper documentation has as threats to it. Paper naturally would age. And we have seen books that have become brown from the color of white. With age, the paper tends to become brown. They tend to become brittle. They tend to start breaking. Overuse would naturally degrade the document. So it gets to a point where people decide that they will not allow people to use a certain document. They want to now keep it under archives. Why would it not be proper to rather have that on an electronic or digital platform? If it is this document, it is one copy, and I want to use it, and I go and there's somebody using it, I have to wait time, and wait for that person to finish using the document. Then I can now have access to the document. What about if it's online? 1,000 people can access that same document at the same time in real time. They will not have anything to do with the paper. They will not have to handle the paper to introduce dirt, oils, or other things onto the paper to help degrade it faster. I don't need to travel to the location to be able to get that one. There are people who use documents and they mutilate the documents. And by mutilation, I mean they highlight, they circle certain words. There are those who are even worse. They want to cut pages out or portions out of a document and keep it because they don't have access to it every day. When that happens, what is the outcome of the record? How are we able to retrieve the record? How are others going to benefit from such a mutilated record? Then there's the issue of pets and rodents, and we know these are there in a lot of libraries. No matter how much you keep the pests and rodents, cockroaches, fire brats, bookworms, all of them, they are there. They would come, they will attack the library documents or whatever archive you have or whatever your records are stored. If they are paper-based, this would happen. Then there is the ambience. the environment in which the documents are kept. If there's too much water in the air, the humidity is high, water will naturally settle on the documents. They will begin to let the ink used for the printing run. You begin to see that if there are photographic plates, they stick together, and it gets to a point when you want to open the page, they are sticking together and pages are getting torn. High temperatures also cause books to brittle out faster. So these are threats that are relating to the medium on which the documents or records are kept. So if you keep a lot of them over a period of 10 years, I'm sure by the time you go to the first year, most of the documents are almost unusable again. So this makes it more of a threat to the records that you have. So in 20 years that you are gone, if you want to now come back and search for a record and you come and that paper is so brittle that as you try to open it, it's breaking off. Whatever information is stored on those papers are lost. Then there is the threats that Dr. Maku talked about from the environment, the disasters, the natural ones and the man-made ones. Dr. Maku talked about the floods in Sudan, but let me create a little Sudan in the library or archive and let's see. So in the archives where the books are kept, somebody gets to go to the washroom, he opens the tap, it's not flowing. The person decides to forget, or let's say the person forgets to close the tap. So while they are away in the evening, the taps begin to flow. And because this particular tap was not shut, the water will begin to pour out of the sink and flow slowly onto the floor. If it goes on through the whole night, by the time you come the next morning, there will be a mini disaster. There will be flooding in the location, and you know how much documents will be lost during that time. There are hurricanes, there are cyclones. In Beira last year, Mozambique, we saw what happened in Zimbabwe and some of the countries around that zone. The cyclones that affected them, we saw how much flood waters were pumped into the city. Those things happen. If a library happens to be in there, if there's an archive, there's a records center, what will happen to all those documents that are there? Are we going to be able to retrieve all of them? Then there are fire outbreaks from forest fires, then fires within the institution, like it happened in the case of Makerere. The interesting thing is that when there's a fire outbreak, everything else is affected. Everything else comes into play. You see, the fire outbreak was put out, but have you looked at the volumes of water that was poured into the building? And they were poured on top of the building. Every floor that is below that place would get wet. The water that was pumped would have a lot of heat in it, so there will be steam. How would this affect the documents that were kept in that building? What about the water environment, the water humidity that is there now? The humidity that is there now, the humidity will be high. So every other document would have some form of effect. There will be effect on all of them. The water that was used to quench the fire has chemicals in it. Are we looking at the effect of those chemicals on the records that are there in the basement? Those that were not affected by the fire will now be affected by the water. And so at the end of the day, we still are back to square one because our documents, our records would be affected in a way. Then there is human activity. When the Arab Spring started, we saw what was happening up there. We also saw what ISIS were doing with sites that were archaeological sites. They went and they actually bent down things. There could be civil unrest, strikes, all those things get to points where people are just in the mood to destroy things. So they go everywhere, anywhere they get to, whatever is there, they don't care. They don't need it at that point. And so they tend to destroy physical things. If our records happen to be in line, in the range of their fire, what happens to them? We will lose all those records. Then there's simple things as UV radiation, in where we store the documents. Ultraviolet radiation from the lights that we use. They over time tend to affect the sun. It also gives out ultraviolet radiation. That is why when you have curtains in your room, and after some time you go to hold it, it starts breaking apart. the exposure to the ultraviolet radiation from the sun affects that. So it also affects the books that we keep in our storage. First, the documents that we keep, it affects the records that we keep. So all these things contribute to the longevity of the documents or records that we are managing. And quality assurance, like we said earlier on, requires that all these documents are available all the time, freely accessible for other people to use. So we need to make sure we are taking steps to prevent these things from affecting the records that we have. What other things are posed by our paper-based records? One is restriction in access. I need to walk to the physical location. If I am not in Ghana and I need a book from the University of Ghana, how would I get that book? It's relevant for my research work. What time would I have to spend to take a car and travel to the University of Ghana campus to go to their library and take something out for my research work? And for research work that are kept in a physical location like that, how much visibility do they get? How much visibility are we getting for that work that has been done? We also have talked about the mutilation of records, introduction of dirt, acid, oils. For instance, if there's a record management center and people who are working there decide to go for lunch, and coming back from lunch, they came with a piece of water bottle with water because they will still continue to drink the water that was not finished at lunch. I have my water beside me. I'm filing. I'm keeping my filing. Then the water, my hand slips and hits the water bottle. It falls down, and then some water poured into one or two documents. I'll quickly dab the water off the document. But do we see what we have done? I have started the process of leaking the print ink. In 3 years' time, by the time I come to pick that same document, whoever is coming to pick up will come and see that the oil has run off the document, and so it is no more readable. How would you determine who poured the water on that document? How would you be able to now recover the content that is now run off that paper? So these are things that are affecting the records that we have. It's not just fire, it's not just flooding, but there are simple things that are also affecting the records that we manage. And for which reason we need to look at quality assuring that these records are always available, irrespective of time, how long they've been kept, or whoever is using it. So how do we now move forward? Technology has given us a solution. And what we need to do is to digitize our records. We need to digitize everything that we have. That is the solution. Is this difficult to do? I don't think it is difficult at all. Why do I say so? Most records these days are born digital. Students are generating their reports on the computer. So from scratch, it's born digital. Why do we seek to let them print it so that you can store it as a hard copy? Why are we not seeking to store it as it was born, as a digital document, and make it available for wider usage and wider visibility? We need to do that. We need to endeavor to preserve as much as possible the documents that are born digital as digital records. Again, what about those that were generated before technology came in that we still think we need to keep? We need to prioritize and start digitizing them. We need to look at the value for each of the documents that we have. For instance, how much value would you attach to a student's record? How much value would you attach to a research paper? And then based on our values for them, we would now begin to digitize whatever records we have in our institutions and to put them online. But we should remember that as an institution, academic institution, our impact and our major focus is on carrying out research. So it is not the relevant documents that are really important, but those that will make us reach or achieve our impact, the research findings, the technical papers, the monographs, the books. That is what should be of much value to us when we are looking at the scale of digitizing our content. we should ensure that there's quality assurance in the way we capture our data when we are doing the digitization process. We should make sure that the records that we are digitizing are searchable. It's searchable so that when we have finished everything and we need to search for documents, we can retrieve particular documents. We should treat research findings same as student examination results, if not even better. The minimum should be at par, the way we treat students examination, and we'll go at all lengths to digitize them, to make them visible or keep them secured. We should make sure our research findings are also like that. What are we supposed to be storing when we have the plan for digitizing our content? We should have things like research findings. We should have things like human resource records, students records, ephemeral records or material, grey material, financial records. All these are supposed to be stored. But how do we store them? We have on-site storage, then we have off-site storage. One of the ways that we've been promoting as AAU is the setting up of local hosting services by way of institutional repositories, where we have the local server on campus, but there's a backup server that is not in the same building. So like in the case of Makerere, the administration building might have one server there, and there's a backup server in another faculty, some distance away from that department. So that in a case where one section or one part of the campus is affected, the other are knowledgeable in how to manage records. Unfortunately, they don't make use of them. The librarians have tried in several instances to try to draw the attention of the administration to the need for proper records management, but they are not heard. It is only when disaster strikes that they begin to look at some of these things. So the basic things that you would need for an institution to set up a digitizing unit and set up an institutional repository to store all the things that will be digitized is skilled labor infrastructure, that's the server or space on the cloud. Then the most important that I keep saying is the institutional commitment. How committed are the institution? They can come out with a policy, but if nobody is seeing to it that the policy is implemented, at the end of the day, nothing will be achieved. There's a need to have financial support from the institution to help pay for services that will be needed to make sure this digitizing and putting on the institutional repository are working. You need to provide an enabling environment. Make sure that people are able to access the records that are put online and they are able to use it effectively and efficiently. They need mandatory policies to help make sure that people are forced to do the right things. They are forced to do the right things. Then, how do we come in as AAU? As AAU, our work is to make sure that our member institutions and any other higher education institution on the continent are introducing quality control measures in whatever they are doing. And in that instance, I spoke about institutional repositories. So our capacity building workshops are based or directed at building the capacity of system librarians and library IT staff using the open source software, that is Koha, so they can automate their processes and use more efficient ways of managing the operations of the libraries. It also helps institutions to set up online publishing platforms using the open journal system, so they can start their own journal publication and to help them publish their research findings. We do this at the institutional level, where an institution requires that we come there and train, set up, train, and help them start running. We do it at the country level, where we do a workshop for the libraries within the country, or records management source centers, or archives within the country. We come to the country, we organize a workshop 3 or 4 days, and anybody else who is interested is open. It's an open workshop. They can come in and listen, join the meeting. Then we do it at the regional level. Sometimes we do it for like East Africa, we do it like for West Africa. And then that one too, at that level, anybody, any institution or any individual who is interested in coming to learn how to quality manage or quality assure the processes of managing their records are invited to come in. There are other slides I don't want to go into now. We'll talk about that later in a different, the advantages of setting up an IR. They are there plenty. The slides will be available, but we'll do a whole presentation on that later so that we can have time for people to ask questions and then we can have interactions. Case for IR, benefits of IR, benefits to the researcher and to the institution as a whole, common concerns that people talk about when you talk about having a local platform where you can showcase the institution's reports and research findings. They are all there. Collection management, how you manage your collections, costs, startup costs, where did they come from? So for now, what I would say the key points we have gone over are that 1, quality records, quality assuring records require correct records are available and they are accessible. Institutions must digitize their records for preservation. They must do that and host them online, because when they do that, it improves access to their content, it increases their visibility, it mitigates the possibility of records lost to disasters, it reduces that possibility. Digitizing of records also reduces operational time and operational cost. Management needs to be on board in this instance. Researchers need to join the wagon and help provide content, but that is in the form of digitized content. Repositories need operational management, operational mandates and policies, and they need to be supported by the administration. Again, finally, we say the role of AAU is that we provide capacity building workshops in setting up institutional repositories, in the management of repositories, in how we can digitize our content, how we can automate our libraries, how we can set up online publishing platforms, and set up learning management systems like Moodle. So that is what AAU does, and that is what I would invite all those in management who are here on this platform now to take note of, so that when your librarian, for instance, tells you that AAU is running a workshop that has to do with managing records correctly with quality assurance mechanisms and steps and processes, you would approve such librarians or information professionals or staff for them to be able to attend. And when they come back, please make sure they are making use of whatever experience or knowledge they have gained to ensure proper management of our academic records and research findings from our institutions. I want to end here. Back to you, Dr. Makuku.
Thank you very much, Brother Abed, for a very insightful and
Dr. Makuku, you are muted. Kindly unmute your microphone.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Abed, for a very informative and insightful presentation. What I think you may have noted that this time around, when I do a quality assurance workshop or something, I'm running along with a specialist in that area also. I'm broadly a specialist in quality assurance. And as much as I try to understand the other areas, I think also having experts on board can really show institutions the nexus between now quality assurance in research, quality assurance in project proposal writing, quality assurance in affects blacks only. But I really do not affect blacks only. It affects the whole world. But the difference is that others take quality assurance seriously, whilst some of us downplay it. You will find even in academic institutions today, quality assurance departments and personnel, you are given 3 people for a university of 10,000 people to quality assure everything in the institution. Sometimes you don't even run a budget. The budget is run elsewhere and managed elsewhere. And in that regard, you see, quality assurance is then trivialized, and then it's because people really do not understand quality and quality assurance issues. I showed you the diagram that when there is a quality and quality assurance, there's a lot of saving which goes on, because we can go on to the example that was given by Abed that, people, there's no water, people leave taps. Sometimes it's even daylight, but because there's no quality culture, a person can pass through lights which are on, and a leaking tap, they will never switch off the lights. They will never report a leaking tap for one reason, because they are not the people responsible for that. But if there's a quality culture in the institution, you see all these things with teamwork, with understanding, with cutting the red tape, but still the institution is run with efficiency. And when you do that, you have surplus now to push into infrastructural development, where you can now boost your internet services and improve your ICT infrastructure in order now to enable yourselves to do this which Brother Abed has been talking about. I saw somebody also saying that how do we address internal connection and infrastructure? I picked it from the chat panel. Ladies and gentlemen, think about private universities. And what surprises me, some private universities that are run by Black people, because you may run to say these private universities are white-owned universities in Africa. I want to refer to some private Black-owned institutions which quickly down to the online teaching and learning. Where did they get the resources from? We need to hunt down those institutions. I'm looking for such institutions in order to have case study webinars with them. So what they've done, they are on board. For public universities, the thing which is killing quality and quality assurance is that they are still waiting for governments to fund them. Apparently, more than 10 years ago, they realized that there is
Hello. Hello. Dr. Makuku. Irene. Irene. Okay. So whilst we are waiting for Dr. Makuku, let me just add these brief notes. We realize that in the issue of the statement from the Vice Chancellor of the Makerere University, there was the issue of insurance for the infrastructure and for the records, or the whatever content was in those buildings. Let's take a look at the cost of the insurance that we pay in that instance, that we pay yearly, and compare that with the money that will come to the institution versus the value of the documents that are lost. If the money is paid to the institution, would the value of the content lost be recouped? Would you ever get to have access to those information that were kept on those papers or sheets? We will never have them again. They are gone forever. So whilst I'm not speaking against insuring your infrastructure, I rather suggest that look at the cost of buying space on the cloud and digitizing your content and making sure all those things are kept on the cloud. Yes, there are some documents that will not be, that cannot be replaced, like agreements that are signed, that cannot be replaced. But you can take snapshots of those documents and keep them. And if you lose the physical ones, you can always fall back on those that are digitized and kept somewhere on the cloud. So there are a lot of things you need to look at. The cost of setting up an institutional repository is not too huge. If you can't have the physical or the technical support to manage that platform, there are service providers that are online that will help you set up the repository. Then all you have to do is to get people to load the content onto the platform for you. So if there are investments, I always say that why do we invest in a lot of buildings and in cars and all the physical things that we want to do? But the thing that will make us more popular, that will make us more relevant, we don't want to invest in them. And it's not so expensive to do those things. So we should begin to look at investing in getting equipment to help us digitize our records and make them more visible. We know that universities are rated by the amount of research you are doing and not by the amount of students you are churning out. Nobody will rate your university because you're able to bring 10,000 students in a year, but they will rate you based on how much research that was impactful that the institution was able to turn out in a year or in 10 years. So these are the most important things, Dr. Maku is back, that you need to focus on when you are running an institution. Running an institution.
Yes, go on, because there's another question for you also.
Okay. So can I take the questions so that I can respond to them?
Another question for you is somebody who was saying that what do you say of take of plagiarized work found in your records? The issue of quality assurance here.
Okay, so
work found on your records.
Okay, so when it comes to plagiarism, I feel happy because I started one with my former institution. You see, when you do a student, you take a look at the student's research, for instance. Somebody does a research and presents to the university, and the person graduates and goes away. How do we keep their research findings, the thesis, the dissertations? We keep them in shelves in the library, isn't it? Or sometimes in lockers. If you go to the library, on the corridors, you see a lot of them stuck on the floor. How many people get access to use the information that is in there? How are you able to see that this work has not been done before? And I'm sure the librarians on the platform here and the supervisors will know that a particular topic would once in every 2 or 3 years come up again, the same topic. Somebody else wants to do the same thing. And the students will go ahead and do the same thing because he's not even aware somebody else has done it and that he could have looked at what was presented earlier and do a fine-tuning of that presentation. So we keep reinventing the wheel. It is because we have not made that report available online for other people to see that this research work has been done and that we don't need to repeat it again. And that is what happens all the time within the universities. And so when we go out and we are setting up repositories and we ask for researchers to also submit their books, their research findings, sometimes it is funny how they resist fiercely why they should submit their research findings onto their own institutional repository. Because sometimes, you know what, they have plagiarized other people's work, and once it goes online, they'll be found out, and they know, and the implications, and so they prevent that. I'm sure some of us here remember the story of the German education minister who had his PhD withdrawn from her because he was found to have plagiarized her PhD thesis. That was because it was online and somebody who had done a previous work that was copied from saw it. But let's say if it was not online and it was just kept within that institution where she got her PhD, who would have found out that one? Nobody would have seen it because it was not visible. Others will not see it. So when we talk about institutionalizing or digitizing our records and keeping them on the cloud, as in the case of institutional repositories, that process in itself involves some quality assurance mechanisms because the supervisor knows that his or her name is attached to that work. If it is found out that the work was plagiarized, his reputation, her reputation is affected. The student knows that the work would be available online, and if he had copied from other people's work, the authors of those work will see it and challenge him or her to the findings. So just the idea or the thought that your work would be online, visible to a lot of people, in itself should make you sit up. It should make sure that your work is being done properly and that there are no other things that will come up against you. And that is why I said earlier on, when we started with institutional repositories, we go to some institutions, training is done, platform is set up. Now they come back and say, no, let us sit back, let us set up a committee to reevaluate postgraduate thesis I'm talking about and select the best ones and put them on the platform. Why would we go to that extent? Why are we now going to do a selection of the best ones? So what has happened to all the other ones that have been passed through over the past 5 years, 10 years? Were they not good? So if they were not good, why were the students graduated? So you see how the IR itself becomes a quality assurance mechanism. It makes sure that people are doing the right things. Supervisors do proper supervision. Because if you are a supervisor, you are a professor, you are in an institution, and your name is known outside there as an expert in a particular way, in a particular field, then your supervised work comes online and everybody is seeing the work that you supervised and you allow the student to pass. The institution itself is also at stake. Oh, so this institution, this is how they do things. This is how they pass their students. Look at this substandard thesis that have been passed for a PhD or for a master's degree. So you see how that